Hello friends, today I'm talking about 4 big books that I'll be reading throughout the rest of this year. We're about halfway through the year and I'm doing the math in my head and I think I can fit in 4 more big novels before the end of the year. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each book and then more importantly why I'm reading that particular book. So let's get to it. And before we get started, I'm curious, do you like those big, thick, dense, door-stopper books? Or are they intimidating for you and you feel like by midway through them, you're ready to be done? You're just bored of them. It's just too much of a commitment. Because I'm definitely more in the camp of loving those long, extensive works. I think because I know that when I read them, I'm in this long-term relationship. Like I'm with this book for 6, 8, 10 weeks, maybe even 12 weeks. And by the time I finish the work, I've spent so much time with these characters. I've spent so much time seeing, their lives develop or this plot develop, this storyline. I feel like I've been immersed within the novel and spent so much time with it that I know it and the novel kind of knows me in that way. Not to over romanticize it, but I think when you spend that much time with any piece of art, whether it's a painting, an album that you listen to on repeat, I think you grow some kind of attachment to it. And you also remember, what was I doing, or at what point in my life was I reading that book? I know I feel that way with certain books on my shelf. What period of my life was I doing? Was I moving states? Was it, a key moment? Was I reading it over Christmas with family? So I'm curious. Let me know in the comments, do you like long works, or are you more just, you like that 200 to 400 page range, maybe 600? The first big book that I'm reading this year that I've actually already cracked into, I'm about 180 pages in, is Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. The mysterious, enigmatic, abstruse, and obscene book that is Gravity's Rainbow. I knew I wanted to read it this year. I think the hype around it, the kind of allure and mystery of this book and how perplexing it is for many people just grabs at my pompous and pretentious mind, I suppose, and I wanted to read it. I was curious about Pynchon. He has a huge influence on David Foster Wallace, who I like. He also has just a massive influence as one of the, kingpin figures in this postmodernist era. And so I was like, I need to read him. And I read The Crying of Lot 49 about a month and a half ago as a little bit of like a primer or some kind of warm-up for this book, just so I had a feel for the prose and the style and the way that that he writes, because he does write in these kind of long-winded, turgid type ways. Anyway, I read that book. I walked away from it with a few takeaways. That Pynchon's style for me, at least with that book, was it was confusing. It was less direct. Like you have to really kind of grapple with all the, again, elusive language somewhat and paint the picture through that rather than getting it kind of served to you. And it's fun and it's artistic in that way. And so I understood that. And by the end of the book, I had some questions, but I also understood a lot of the book and what he was getting at. And I found that actually by finishing The Crying of Lot 49, I wanted to like immediately restart it. And I felt like I was now ready to actually read the book, if that makes sense. So with that experience, I was excited to read Gravity's Rainbow. I felt ready. And already 180 pages in, I'm enjoying it a lot. It took me maybe 60 pages to get my bearings straight and to get used to all the crazy names, Jessica Swan Lake and Cherry Coke and all these different crazy last names going on, Tyrone Slothrop, all these different quirky names, and just get a feel for the setting and the time period and all of that. But overall, really enjoying it. Already starting to tab this guy up. I did get this really nice edition. I think it was one of those early printed copies, and I found it online on some kind of more random website, but it was a good copy. The only issue with it was this like scratch across the front. Had a nice little dust jacket as well, so I'm trying to keep it in good condition. I'm not writing in it, not underlining it. I'm like slowly developing weird rules for what books I'll write in or won't, but I am tabbing it, and eventually if I want to read it again, which I probably will, I'll probably get a Penguin copy that I can just write in a lot more with. But that is the first book. Excited to dig into it more. Like I said, I got another, 400 plus pages to go, but I'm in it for the journey, and it's definitely a weird, obscene, but incredibly fascinating book. Oh, and a quick note, the way that I like to read, or at least read currently, is I'll read one bigger book, 500 plus pages usually, and then I'll read a lot of shorter books intermittently. So I'll read the bigger book in the morning, get about an hour of reading, and then middle of the day I get another like 30 to 60 minutes, and that middle of the day book usually is shorter stories, might be poems, it might be, again, a shorter novel, a novella, something like that. So that's how I structure it. So these aren't like the only books I'm reading for the year. They're just like the main books that everything else is revolving around, so to speak. And after reading Gravity's Rainbow, the next big book I'll be digging into is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. And I was actually going to read War and Peace. That was the plan all year long. War and Peace is going to be my big fat novel to read this year. I'll start it in the fall, late summer, something like that. But I got persuaded to read Anna Karenina instead. And here's what happened. Many of you know I've been studying Russian language and learning that slowly but surely. And I've actually been using an app called Tandem lately. And on this app, you can communicate with other people around the world that are learning languages. So I've been speaking with a lot of Russian native speakers who are learning English. We've been helping each other. And it's definitely been a great chance for me to absorb more of the culture, practice, and learn a little bit more, a bit more efficiently with learning language. And while doing that, I've also developed these little friendships. And one of the women I've been speaking with actually wanted to read Anna Karenina soon. So I said, you know what, why don't you read Anna Karenina in the native Russian, and I'll read the English translation, and we'll read it together and we can discuss it, and I can see, you know, what sections are translated weird, what little cultural references or things that just aren't coming across in the translation that I'm missing, what are those? And also just having like a little bit of a, you know, book discussion with her. So I think that'll be a really fun opportunity for me to not only read the book for the first time and enjoy it, but also see, you know, what I'm missing in translation. How are these things being communicated through the language? What meaning is getting lost or slightly, I don't want to say manipulated, but altered to fit maybe an English audience? All of that. So I think that'll be a really fun and unique experience. And if it goes well, maybe we'll read War and Peace after that. And then after finishing Anna Karenina, I'm guessing late summer, I will start The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. This isn't actually too big of a book. I think it's just under 600 pages, but it's a decent size, and I've been meaning to get to Franzen. He's definitely one of these more modern writers that gets a lot of acclaim. He's one of those late postmodernists into the 2000s, a close friend of David Foster Wallace, within that same kind of generation and class with Don DeLillo and other writers as well. And The Corrections is a book that I think paints a good picture of American culture and family dynamics, crises of identity, societal pressures and familial pressures that start to weigh on individuals, a glimpse into abusive, distressed family as well. And also it has a unique place because it came out 10 days before 9/11, so it's kind of this demarcation line that we can draw between American life and society pre and post 9/11. That I think it'll be interesting to read this. So like I said, I'll start that probably like late summer, early fall, and it'll be interesting again to see how culture has changed and evolved over the past 20 or 24 years since this came out. And lastly, I should have room for one more big novel. And so this is a little bit of a wild card. I'm going to tell you what book I'm expecting to choose, but this is a totally malleable decision. I could shift to Moby Dick. I could shift to The Magic Mountain. I could change this at any time. Maybe you will persuade me with a suggestion in the comments. But currently, I'm expecting to read 2666 by Roberto Bolaño. Now, this is, again, another book that has mystery and enigma attached to it. Not only because he passed away like right as the book was being published, but also he's just a strange writer. He writes in strange ways from what I hear. I listened to a long podcast about him and about his life, but I haven't read any of his works before, such as The Savage Detectives or any of his poems that he wrote in his youth. But Bolaño, I believe a Chilean writer, if I'm correct, but lived in multiple countries within South America. Family was kind of traveling a lot in his youth. And the story follows, I believe, a German writer, and they're following the case of different murders. And there's just a lot going on. And the book actually was supposed to be 5 different short books. And I believe the reason for that was Bolaño wanted to provide as much money as possible for his family, as he knew he was dealing with, I believe it was a liver illness that killed him eventually. But he was hoping by releasing 5 different books, you have 5 different opportunities for sales and income and all that, rather than one book. But it ended up all getting condensed down to one book posthumously. And I'm interested to read this. I believe Bolaño is categorized as dude bro as well. So be it, I would say. So maybe it'll be perfect for me. But let me know. Again, this is a malleable decision, but a book I'll definitely read at some point. But I'm open to being persuaded this year. But those are 4 big books, novels that I'm looking forward to reading throughout the rest of this year. I've read some great books so far this year, and I'll definitely have to do like a mid-year update as far as at least the best books, or make some kind of emphasis on certain ones that stood out so far. But that's it for this video. Like I said, if you have any experience with these books or a suggestion, leave it in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.